So hello class. We're going to discuss this emotional and social development in middle childhood. So we will try to discuss each topic one by one. So psychodynamic and psychosocial theories of middle childhood. Like I told earlier, Freud's latency stage begins around age 6 and lasts until puberty with a focus on development and stimulations coming from secondary sources like education, social relationships, and hobbies. As the erogenous forces are repressed. Pag sinabing latency period yung kay Freud, so they are not, yung sexual awareness nila is dormant, no, parang repressed or nakatago. Because this will emerge during the genital stage pagdating nila nung sa adolescent stage. So here, the stimulation and the focus of development, yung sa nag-aaral sila, meron silang friends, like what I said, no, girl to girl na friends, and then boys magkakasama sila. And then dito rin nag-start if they have yung mga hobbies, no, they have special interest. So when you start to think about your own childhood, what were your interests or your hobbies during this time? Most probably you will remember that you are enrolled in school, grade 1 hanggang maybe grade 5. And then siguro you can also remember na naglalaro lang kayo sa labas, 'di ba, with your friends. And you're starting to have social relationships, yung mga friendship mo sa kapitbahay or mga kamag-anak, pinsan, or even your relationship with your family members like mga ate, kuya, kapatid, or mas nakababatang kapatid. But then not everybody has a or not everybody is lucky to have na meron kang pinsan na or paano kung only child ka lang, 'di ba? Tapos yung parents mo pareho pang nagtatrabaho tas may iwan ka lang sa yaya. So ang pwedeng maka-interact mo lang socially is yung nag-aalaga sa'yo kasi some children were protected. 'Di ba ayaw palabasin, ayaw palaruin sa ibang bata kasi baka mamaya aawayin, masusugatan, yung mga ganong tipo na maybe fears ng mga parents. Pero mas magandang merong interaction talaga ang mga bata. So let's talk about self-concept development, representational system. During this stage, middle childhood, the children can now focus on more than one dimension of themselves. Like they are smart on subjects, pero magaling sa math, or magaling sa English, hindi makuha ang math, magaling sila sa drawing, magaling sa writing, pero dun sa iba, ay ibang dimensions nila, hindi. Because in this stage, they can focus on what they interest nila and what they want. Okay, like sports, music, arts, pwede yun, or academics. Okay, siguro iba rito pwede mag-start na with cooking yung iba kasi minsan may influences din ng mga nakakatanda or ng mga parents. And then they also start comparing your real self nila with the ideal self. If you're going to try to look in dun sa earlier na discussions natin, like if we have obese children or if we have they may think of their real self and then they are DL self, no? Kung medyo fat or overweight. And then, ang gusto nilang ideal self nila ay medyo yun nandun sa healthy na weight. Diba? They can compare. That's why obesity may have an impact on a child's self-esteem. And then, measuring up to social standards in cooperation with the others. Ano tong mga social standards na sinasabi natin in cooperation with the others? Kasi we are already teaching them mga rules of the society. That's why when I told you earlier that this is the best time to engage the children in sports kasi dun nila malalaman like what's the rules of the game, basketball, baseball, soccer, badminton, may mga rules yan, 'di ba, na hindi puwedeng gawin basta-basta yung gusto mong gawin. And halimbawa, cooperation with others, especially in team sports, hindi puwede na halimbawa, ikaw lang yung sa bida or sa basketball, ikaw lang yung laging, shoot ng shoot 'no, yung mga team sports that would be beneficial to promote cooperation. And then social standards, usually puwede tayong magkaroon dito with problem with obedience sa authority. Okay, yung mga ganyan. And then self-esteem, the children's view of their capacity for productive work or competence. Like what I said yun, Sir Erickson, yung sa mga unang klase natin, 'di ba, they would tend to, if they start to going to school, mataas ang tendency na they will compare themselves with other children. And then doon ka pwedeng feel like inferiority kasi if you see your classmates finishing work, 'di ba may natatapos tapos mas mabilis sila tas ikaw mabagal, you may see yourself na parang less competent or maybe feel a little inferior. Halimbawa, balik tayo dun sa PE class. That's why some children who are sickly, yung ill, 'di ba yung iba hindi na pinagpi-PE kasi mahihirapan din sila, mapapagod sila, mahahapo, and then, um, 'pag hindi nila nagawa yung isang task, like physical task, tatakbo, hihingalin, 'di ba, may effect rin siya, 'no? Baka tingin niya sa sarili niya, mahina siya, sakitin, gano'n. May effect yun sa self-esteem. Erickson's theory, industry versus inferiority. In Erickson's theory, industry versus inferiority is a psychological conflict of middle childhood, which is resolved positively when experiences lead children to develop a sense of competence at useful skills and tasks. The danger at this stage is inferiority, reflected in the sad pessimism of children who have little confidence in their ability to do things well. Kaya mahirap rin, like for example, in a family, kung marami kayong magkakapatid, and then your parents would tend to compare yung mga performances ninyo, that would have a um, what's this? Effect like on your self-esteem or even your inferiority kasi you will think na your ate or your kuya or your younger siblings may do better than you, yeah, during this stage ng middle childhood. Right, and then may nagsasabi sa inyo na maitim, patpatin, or maybe weak yung kanilang mga physical body, diba? And then like earlier too, we said na you focus on some, like maybe math, English, arts, and then dump ka naman sa iba, mahina ang or mababa ang grade mo sa iba, pero sa iba mataas. Diba? Yung mga ganyan. So as future parents, or because we're studying this, we should be aware, or we should be careful, when dealing with children, especially with this kind of aspects, or even if you're going to be like future teachers ng elementary school, you have to remember Erickson's theory. For this, we can encourage children to work on their assignments and encourage them to finish. Hindi naman siya pabilisan. Kasi iba gusto pagandahan as long as the child can finish the work. Di ba meron siyang matatapos? And then if you go back to the earlier stage ni Erickson, initiative, that's very then important. Okay, children describe themselves in terms of psychological traits, emphasizing competencies instead of specific behaviors. School children begin to make social comparisons that they, number one, judge their appearances, and then their abilities and behavior in relation to those of others. Diba? Especially appearances, how do you describe yourself? Maitim, maliit, mataba, overweight. Hindi pa naman ginagamit kasi yan sa middle childhood, yung overweight usually mataba ang sinasabi natin, pango, usually kulot ang buhok, pangit, diba, mga negative, pwede rin positive. Usually for at this stage, Pagka sa mga girls, yung meron ng menarche, some may have developed bodies. Pero di ba nauuna yung girls kasi sa boys? So pagka tinignan mo, matatangkad na yung mga babae. Yung mga boys, short pa sila. Right? Abilities, kaya ba nilang kumanta, sumayaw, academics, behavior in relation to those of others. Mas magulo, isip bata, di ba? They can be accused of that. So it emphasizes their competencies, both positive and negative. So they compare themselves with other children. That's why it's very important at this stage na hindi sila naiiba sa karamihan. Ayaw na ayaw nila. So if you're going to be future parents, you listen to your children. Diba what they like? Hindi mo pwedeng i-impose kung ano yung gusto mong ipapasuot sa kanila. Because these children, itong ginagawa ni Vic, social comparisons. Okay, self-esteem in middle childhood. We have hierarchical structured. It's hierarchically structured. So there's a separate areas and general self-esteem. Example, no, 7 to 8. By 7 to 8 years old, it's formed at least 4 separate self-esteem. Iba ang self-esteem na academic competence, social competence, physical, athletic, and physical appearance. So can you imagine that? Ang daming source nila ng self-esteem. Although children differ in the aspects of the self they deem most important, the way they perceive their physical appearance correlates more strongly with general self-worth than any other self-esteem factor. Unang-una is their physical appearance, number 1. So that's very important. Going back to your genes, napaka-importante kung anong namana natin sa ating mga parents because that's our physical appearance. So changes in level of self-esteem. Self-esteem drops during the first few years of elementary school. Most appraise their characteristics and competencies realistically while maintaining an attitude of self-acceptance and self-respect. So try to imagine yung picture nyo ng kinder, tama ba? No, grade 1, grade 2, yung ngingiti kayo, wala kayong ngipin, nakadora haircut kayo. Tapos sa babae, straight hair. Isa lang ang cut ng mga boys. Diba? From 4 to 6th grade, self-esteem rises for the majority of children because during this time, they may already have their own hobbies at may mga competencies na sila. May sports, may art, may music. And then academics. Okay, let's go to moral development. Question, sino mas naughty here? Who is naughtier? We have an ink blot on the table. Nakita mo to, no? Merong malinis sa table tapos may nakasulat. Si Daniel, sinulat niya, I'm Daniel. Meron pang smiling face. And then Harry, nilagyan niya na X. Sinong paparusahan sa kanila? Sinong mas may punishment dito? Okay, let's try to look. How is moral developed? Okay, sabi dito. So, pag sinabi mo, if we're talking about the degree of offense, mas more yung sinulat ni Daniel. Ba't sisihin natin si Daniel? Ang dami niyang sinulat. No? Buong-buo yung table, sinulatan niya. Tapos mas konti yung degree of offense ni Harry. Pero pagka sinabi mo na gano'n, that's an immature moral judgment. I mean, actually, kung titignan mo, pareho silang nagsulat. Oo, di ba? Tama bang magsulat sa table? Dapat ba may degree of offense? Diba ganon? Immature moral judgment. Kapag ganito mas more yung sinulat ni Daniel parusahan natin siya. Mas malaki parusa niya. Ganun ba dapat yun? Diba? So let's look at the intent. Ano yung intention? Mas mature yung moral judgment kasi kung iisipin mo, itong sinulat ni Daniel, this is unintentional. Malay ba niya? Pero itong si Harry, this is more intentional. So when you try to look at this sa mga moral judgment, you don't just look at the degree of offense, but on their intent. Maganon na natin malalaman yung moral development. Okay, we have 3 stages of moral reasoning. The first stage, this is approximately ages 2 to 7. This is a rigid obedience to authority. No, at this stage, children would tend to be egocentric. Nakasentro ang isip sa kanilang sarili. Hindi nila nakikita ang side ng iba. So rules cannot be bent or changed. So behavior is either right or wrong. So any offense deserves punishment, regardless of intent. Basta may ginawa ka, meron kang kaparusahan. Rigid, mali-mali, puti-puti, itim-itim. That's rigid obedience to authority. Ito yung nangyari sa 2 to 7. And then, pagdating naman sa second stage, which is stages 7 or 8, 10 or 11. There's an increasing flexibility. There's a wider range of viewpoints. Slowly, iba yung kay PJ na cognitive development, they are turning away from themselves, from egocentrism. So nakikita na rin nila yung views ng ibang tao. And if you're going to look dun sa, kasi syempre habang lumalaki, nagde-develop yung brain natin hanggang maging adolescent, hanggang early adulthood, no? Our brain is developing. Syempre even our moral reasoning also improves kasabay yan ng pag-develop ng ating mga brain. So they discard the idea of absolute right and wrong. There is a sense of justice based on fairness or equal treatment for all. And there's more subtle moral judgment. Mas flexible, hindi na yung obedience to authority. Hindi na rin yung absolute right or wrong. And then the third stage, this is around 11 or 12, there's equity. No, taking specific circumstances into account. No, pagka kasi sinabi mo equality, lahat ito. Kung sino yung, lahat sila binigyan mo ng, kung mamimigay ka ng pera, lahat sila bibigyan mo ng 100 pesos. Kahit yung isa sa kanila mas nangangailangan ng doble or more or iba less. So when you look at equity, dapat everybody would kung sino yung mas nangangailangan, yun yung mas pwede natin siyang unahin or pagbigyan. We look at their specific circumstances into account. Okay, Kohlberg build on Piaget's work with an interest in moral reasoning, changes as we age and how we arrive at decisions about whether something is right or wrong. So we have this, no, kay Kohlberg ito, pre-conventional moral development. This is a superficial understanding of right and wrong with a focus on direct consequences of action, avoiding punishment, and self-interest. If you think this way, superficial, mababaw lang yung pagkakaalam mo sa tama at mali, and then ang tinitignan mo lang yung consequences ng action, ayaw mo lang mapaparusahan ka, or maybe ayaw mong makukulong, ayaw papagalitan ka, or self-interest. Iba, naka-focus siya sa sarili. So, ibig sabihin kung magkapatid dyan, usually kung mas bata, no, wala siyang pakialam. Like doon sa, basta sa save niya yung sarili niya. Bahala na kung yung ibang tao masasaktan. Basta siya hindi. Something like that. And then conventional moral development, a good decision is one that gains the approval of others or one that complies with the law with a focus on maintaining social order. Kasi pag sinabi natin na conventional moral development, ginagawa mo yung isang bagay para pwede i-praise ka ng ibang tao or i-approve ka ng ibang tao, matutuwa sa'yo. Kasi ayaw mo rin na magagalit din sa'yo. No, parang similar sa pre-conventional, pero ito, ang nag-upgrade lang siya because meron na tayong pinag-usapan na law. Kasi pwedeng lumabas ka na dun sa family. And there's a focus on maintaining social order. Ibig sabihin, susunod ka na sa rules, tatawid ka kung nasa ng pedestrian lane, magtatapon ka ng basura sa tamang tapunan ng basura, you follow the laws of the land. Siyempre, ano yan? Bawal magdakaw, bawal pumatay, di ba? Yung mga ganyan. Dahil hindi ka gugustuhin, mayroong disapproval, pero kasi pwede ka rito makulong. Okay? Pag may ginawa kang masama. And then pag post, usually mga tao, no, if they have an average, yung kanilang moral development, karamihan ng tao nandito sa conventional moral development because We are just complying with the law and we focus on maintaining social order. Diba? And then post-conventional moral development, right and wrong are based on social contract established for the good of everyone, or universal principles of right and wrong transcend the self and social convention and includes realizing that not everything is black and white and thinking about morality in a non-personal way. So if you think na ang example dito ay yung kahalagahan ng buhay, no, life universally should be preserved na what is good for everybody. Ang mga kailangan nating gawin, hindi yung sarili nating interest, hindi rin dahil hindi rin dahil tayo ay sumusunod sa law, but because halimbawa pinapahalagahan natin ang buhay na pagka dito hindi na natin yun nga no, we do not think of ourselves anymore. It transcends the self. Example, excuse me. Halimbawa kung meron taong in danger, tapos sasagipin mo siya, pero halimbawa may possibility ka rin na pwede kang mamatay. So you will reason na importante kasi na yung buhay ng tao, so that's why we have to save that person. Okay? Kasi halimbawa kung hindi ka naman tutulong, pagka ganun, di ba sasabihin yung sani, may self-interest ka. Pwedeng nandun ka sa pre-conventional. Okay, Kohlberg continued to explore his theory and theorized that there could be other stages and that there could be transition into each stage. Men and women tend to have very different styles of moral decision making, and this was not fully addressed as Kohlberg used nearly all male samples. So ito yung criticism kay Kohlberg. Kasi meron kasi siyang moral dilemma na ang ginamit lang niya ay puro male samples. So Carol Gilligan was a research assistant and believed the theory was inherently biased against women. Gilligan suggests that in order to truly measure women's moral development, it was necessary to measure specifically for women and that understanding both male and female moral development was equally important. So sabi ni Gilligan siguro dapat equal yung pag-test ng moral development sa babae at saka sa lalaki. Okay? Let's move on to another topic. Wait lang.